The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport podcast, where this week we're presenting our top 10 West Cork sporting moments from 2023. I'm your host, Dylan Mangan, and I'm joined today by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose credit union, choose local, choose community. Now, as I said, on this week's podcast, we have our top 10 West Cork sporting moments from an incredible year of West Cork sport. But just first, a very little bit of admin to get through as just a reminder for our upcoming publishing dates. The Star will be in shops and online as normal during the holiday period. So that's on the 28th of December. Next week's edition will have our news and sports review editions as well. So that's a great thing to look forward to over Christmas. And as well, we'll be back on the 4th of January to start the year off right and begin the countdown to another end of year review for 2024. This will also be our last podcast of the year. So we'll be celebrating as a bit more of a relaxed podcast this week as we take a look back at the year gone by. And Kieran, before we get into the list itself, it's been an incredible year. Like, we've been chatting about it kind of off camera quite a lot about how West Cork sports in kind of a golden era. And we were talking about that last year, how West Cork sports in a golden era. But again, this year has been the kind of quality and the levels that people are reaching has been amazing.
Oh, it's incredible. Like, West Cork never ceases to surprise me. It's the gift that keeps on giving in terms of sport. 2023, you could say it's the year that West Cork GA fought back. You know, as in, it's been not saying there was lean years there, but with a headline on this week's Star about the Empire striking back, and that really was it. Because you look at West Cork, it's seen as football heartland here in Cork, and it was this year that the local GA teams just found their stride and hit a new level. So many county titles came here, with Munster titles coming to West Cork. We have an All-Ireland title after the weekend. So, and the GA scene, brilliant year. But there was so much more beside that. And I think the beauty of West Cork sport is that it's across everything. It's every sport you could imagine. It's represented here in West Cork. And putting together this top 10 moments from the year, it's always tough. Like, you kind of start off and you're thinking, okay, well, that's it. And it gets to the point where you're like, oh crap, I've got to make decisions here, as in, why doesn't that get in, and why, and so on and so on. And you could almost have a top 20 list at this stage, and maybe the way it's called, that could be in years to come, we could have a top 20 sports moments. But that just highlights where we are in West Cork right now. Just we keep saying it, it's a golden time for West Cork sport. And the brilliant thing is that there's no end in sight. And what I liked about this year is just the kind of you always see the kind of young guns starting to come, as in the next generation of young sports people. And let's even say earlier this week, we had a couple of sports star awards over the Celtic Ross Hotel, and one of the young sports stars was Katie Kingston, who got a Paddy Palmer Youth Award, and she's a 16-year-old from Cora, and she won 5 All-Ireland medals in the javelin in this year alone. Like, so kind of that's a specialist sport. We don't see much javelin here in West Cork, but she's a young West Cork sports person putting javelin on the map locally. So someone to keep an eye on in the years ahead. But that just shows that the wheel keeps on turning.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something there for everyone. And we might as well get into the list now. And starting with number 10. By the way, for our listeners, this list was chosen by our sports editor, by Kieran McCarthy. So if there are any grievances, we can direct him an email at sport@southernstar.ie. Obviously, we have plenty of honourable mentions there as well. But number 10, Kieran, you went for the West Cork kind of showing at Cheltenham in 2023.
Yeah, we had a Super Cheltenham Festival back in March. We had 2 local winners. We had Gavin Cheatham from Dunmanway. He's his 3rd Cheltenham winner. He had a success. And you wavered well in the Jack de Bromhead Mares Novices Hurdle. And that follows on from his wins in 2015 on Cole Harden and 2020 on Simply the Bets. And then there was also Brian Hayes from Ross Carberry. He had his first ever Cheltenham winner on Impervious in the Paddy Power Mares Chase. And that was on the final day of the festival. And just on Gavin Sheehan for a second, what a year this man has had. In November, he rode his 700 career winner. He's after a couple of huge wins already in December. And after his Cheltenham win earlier in the year, it's a year that Gavin won't forget. But back to Brian for a moment. After his winner, he's described it as a dream come true, and it was exactly that. This was a young fella who played football. He was a young fella, he played football with Carbery Rangers back in the day. Horse racing, that's where his passion lay. He followed that, he put football to one side, and all these years later, he gets his first Cheltenham winner. It's just a great story. And he was presented with a West Cork Sports Star Award back in, I think it was April or May, just after that. Lovely fella, lovely to meet him, and it's just great to see that West Cork representation in horse racing. We'd Noel Feely there for years. I mean, the likes of Gavin and Brian kind of flying the flag, and long may that continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Elsewhere, Brian had a good June as well, as he was in the front row for one of the best tennis games I've ever seen. That was the final between Alcaraz and Djokovic. He was pictured in the royal box with Rachel Blackmore, with all the stars there as well. So not a bad year for him outside of horse racing as well in that sense. And
That's
for
to the job, isn't it, to get into
exactly
at Wimbledon? And you're right, like that was an epic, Jesus, that men's final was something else. Brian was there with his partner Rachel Blackmore. Rachel was actually at the Celtic Ross for the Sports Star Award presentation back earlier this year as well. So I think Brian has had quite a good year when you package it all together. Winning the Cheltenham, getting into the Royal Box, watching that tennis epic, getting the Celtic Ross West Cork Sports Star Award, getting in the Southern Star Sports section on numerous occasions. So it's probably been the sporting year of his life, Dylan.
Yeah, best luck to him and to Gavin going into 2024 as well. Let's move on to number 9. And Kieran, the West Cork Mafia have been at it again this year with some incredible performances. They helped end Munster's 12-year trophy drought, winning the URC final in Cape Town, and individually as well, each member has had a great season too.
Yeah, there's an argument that this could have been higher up the list in number 9, and I was kind of mulling over this, but we have, just as a teaser, we have another rugby entry kind of higher up the list, but that's not to overlook West Cork's role in Munster's URC win back in May, but even West Cork's role in Munster's run to that final win down in Cape Town. So go back to the semi-final against Leinster for a second up in the Aviva. It was Inishannon's Jack Crowley who got that drop goal near the end, much to the delight of Munster fans. It broke Leinster hearts, but it was Jack came through the ranks of Bandon Grammar and Bandon Rugby Club. So he got the score that put Munster into the final. Then on the final itself, Jack had another super game down in Cape Town against the Stormers. John Hoddett from Ross Carberry got the winning try near the end. He's a Ross Carberry man. Gavin Coombs from Skibbereen had a super game that day as well. Really worked hard, really impressed and caught the eye. And then we Josh Wycherley from Bantry came on as a replacement in the second half. So you had 4 West Cork men playing active roles in Munster's first trophy success in 12 seasons. And Fiona Wycherley was unlucky not to be part of it too. So on the podcast over the last couple of years, we've been championing the rise of West Cork rugby and the impact and influence of West Cork men and women at the various levels of Munster. And we saw it at the highest level this year, that there was West Cork fingerprints on Munster's URC success. And it's just great to see so many local lads flying that West Cork flag at the highest level. And it's great that they're still doing it again this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a side note as well, outside of kind of the Munster contingent, there's still rugby in West Cork has grown quite a lot in the last few years, and it was a great year for the Skibbereen ladies rugby team, a great year for Bantry Bay. They won the under 18 Munster title. There's Abby Salter Townsend and another few on Munster's women's team as well. So kind of rugby as a whole could be a highlight here, aside from just the West Cork contingent on Munster's team.
Exactly, like rugby here in West Cork, it's had a boom over the last couple of years, and it's been just great to see. And it's okay when you look at the likes of the Gavin Coombs and the Jack Crowleys and the Liam Coombs and Fintan and John and all those at John Hodgett at Munster level, they're at the highest level. But there's a conveyor belt of talent behind them on the way up as well, which is great to see. And West Cork is a hotspot for rugby players right now. When you mentioned the likes of Abby Salter Townsend and Gillian Coombs, the older sister of Gavin, who's on that Munster women's Interpro team. Michelle O'Driscoll from Lep, who played with Skib. She's also had a good year on the rugby field. But it's even, let's kind of even bring it down to Clonakilty Rugby Club, opened their new Astro facility earlier in the year. Like, that's an incredible facility over in Clonakilty. And that's an example of a club which is very strong numbers at underage level as well. So the popularity of rugby, it's just increasing here in West Cork, because you have that kind of, you can be effect, because it's local players, whether it's Inya Breen from Skib, or it's Jack Crowley who played in Bandon, or Fintan Witchley out in Bantry. Young kids can see locals from their area playing at the highest level, and that makes it so possible to realise their dreams. Like we said before in this podcast, those stars right now, they're joining the dots from West Cork to Munster to Ireland, even to World Cups, as we saw with Jack Crowley this year. And long may that continue.
It's interesting to see as well, before we move on to number 8, that kind of participation and interest in rugby in West Cork is growing at a time when kind of rugby globally and maybe even nationally in Ireland, just in terms of participation, is kind of falling a little bit. So it's interesting to see. Maybe it's partly that, as you say, people, kind of the stars like the Crowleys and Coombs, kind of showing people what's possible from West Cork. But it's just kind of an interesting kind of comparison to make as well.
It is like, and the sport is growing here. I'm just thinking again to the West Cork Sports Star Awards this year. Saskia Wycherley got a youth award, and she's the young sister of Finine and Josh, and she was a young West Cork woman who kind of captained Ireland at the under-18 Women's Six Nations Festival earlier in the year, and she's also co-captain of the Munster under-18s team in the Interpros. You've had kind of a young player like Dylan Hicks out from Bantry, who's brought into the Munster Academy, and he's a young fella to watch as well. So, like I was saying, we have you have to call them established players now, the local players, men and women, who are kind of part of the furniture, you could say, at the Munster teams. But you also have that next generation on the way up as well. And it's that's what's pushing it forward, because you take it right back to Darren Sweetenham. He was a trailblazer. He kicked it all off when he went from Dunmanway to Munster. And now what we're seeing is rugby players emerging from all corners of West Cork, and I think that's quite important. Think back to Laura Sheehan down from Urhan, who played at the Munster women's team and was captain of Ireland numerous times as well. So it's not just a success story that you can say, okay, that's Bandon or that's Skib. Like, this is right across West Cork. I think that's what's quite encouraging, is that that it is right across the region.
Yeah, absolutely. The best maybe yet to come for West Cork rugby. We'll see in 2024. We'll move on now to number 8, and the first of many GAA entries in this list. It's been a brilliant year for West Cork GAA teams, so much so that in this week's Southern Star we have a countdown of the top 10 West Cork GAA moments, as opposed to West Cork sporting moments. There were just so many. There's a list of its own. But for number 8, Kieran, you've gone for kind of the team that kicked off or opened the floodgates of cups coming west in Oliver Plunkett's, who won the County Junior B football and hurling double earlier this year.
Yeah, this was a huge achievement for Plunkett's, and it was right back in the summer. And it's almost like we're in December now, and it's not saying it's forgotten, but it was so early in the year, right smack bang in the middle of the summer. And there's been so much success for West Cork teams since then that it's almost easy to forget what Plunkett's achieved, but to win a county junior B double in hurling and football in the space of a week was absolutely incredible. They made Páirc Uí Rinn their home for those 2 weekends, winning the hurling final first and then the football title the week after. Just an incredible week for Plunkett's, and it's just a success story for that club because they had I wouldn't say fallen in hard times, but they had been struggling. So for them to get back to winning a county title, I think was huge for the club. It's definitely re-energized the club. Plunkett's are kind of currently in action in the Munster Junior B competition. They did a super win there a couple of weeks back and it's put them through to the semi-final. I think that's in the new year. So Plunkett's are the first GA entry, but this is also one of the ones I was mulling over because Plunkett's got in at the expense of Barry Rowe footballers, and I hope the Barry Rowe contingent aren't turning off the podcast right now, because it just shows how tough it was to select the top 10. Like Barry Rowe had an incredible year winning their first Carbery Junior A football championship, and in a normal year, after such a thing as a normal year in West Cork sport, they'd be in that top 10. But I just felt what Plunkett's did, winning a double in hurling and football at county level, that just deserves recognition. So Sean Holland here in the Star Sports department, he's a Barry Rowe man. I'm not sure he's seen the list just yet. I'm waiting for him to burst through the door here and try and right the wrong of Barry Rowe getting knocked off, but I don't think anyone will begrudge Plunkett's taking their place on the top 10.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll give number 11 to Barry Rowe and make it a top 11 list. But brilliant for Plunkett's, and the fact it was in the space of a week as well, winning the 2 titles is incredible. So congratulations to all involved there. We'll move on now to number 7. And Kieran, West Cork Soccer, the Kennedy Cup team earlier this year, they kind of they went where no West Cork Kennedy Cup team has gone before and finished 3rd overall, and it was an incredible achievement. And one thing that I kind of noticed at the time is there was a real sense of kind of investment and involvement, I don't know what the right word is, from local people in their success, because obviously they went up to UL to play, and the games were streamed live on Facebook, and I was watching one of their games and there were tens and tens of comments coming in saying good luck West Cork, good luck West Cork, and it was just brilliant to see the amount of kind of excitement that it all brought as well.
Yeah, this is huge for West Cork Soccer. And if you look at the West Cork Schoolboys and Schoolgirls League as a whole for a second, it's in a good place in terms of the West Cork Academy. We there recently with the West Cork underage team head across to Spain. They were playing Atletico Madrid, Valencia, like kind of wows in terms of they're playing stellar opponents. And they were playing those clubs under 17 teams. We've seen West Cork teams go across to England. They've played friendlies over there. They've gone to Liverpool's training ground and so on. So there's huge work going on at schoolboys and schoolgirls level in West Cork, and almost the Kennedy Cup team was the face of that this year in terms of their 3rd place finish, which definitely put West Cork Soccer on the map. It was the best ever finish of any West Cork team ever competing at the Kennedy Cup. So that just straight away that merits its place on the top 10 moments of the year. But you're dead right, Dylan. Huge interest in it locally for that week that the tournament ran up in UL. It's always a magical week. Like you've the creme de la creme of under 14 soccer players in Ireland. Kind of they all congregate in Limerick for this festival of football. And West Cork, they won't go there to make up the numbers. Like they went there with an intent to do something special, and that's exactly what they did. To finish 3rd and go all the way to the semi-final first, and that was their only defeat of the week. But they went to the playoff then, and they won that in penalties. And for instance, you've a young fellow like Tom Whaley who scored 6 goals. I think he was the joint top scorer in the Kennedy Cup that week. It's just great for local soccer. It just puts West Cork Soccer on the map, and I think what it helps too for the people who are driving West Cork Soccer, when they start saying, look what we did without facilities. Imagine what we could do if we had proper facilities, because there is no home for soccer in West Cork. And a lot of sports can actually say that, but soccer can as well. And I know they'd love to get pitches here. They'd love to have a base, a home where they could work from. But it's easier to approach the politicians and the businesses when you can say, we finished 3rd in the country without a home. Imagine what we could do if there was investment here, if we had a place to call home. So I think it's a great success story for this year, but you'd hope too that it's something that West Cork can build on in the years to come as well.
Yeah, hopefully it leaves some sort of a legacy there as well. And they were really unlucky in their semi-final. Like they were probably the better team in that game, but were just beaten by was an incredible volley from about 25 yards. So there's not much you can do when somebody sticks it in the top corner. So maybe 2024 it could go one better. Who knows? We'll move on now to number 6. And Kieran, this is somebody who we've had on the podcast recently, Fiona Everard, who won the women's senior national cross country title earlier this year in November. And I guess what's incredible about Fiona is the fact that she did this just or less than 12 months, let's say, after winning the novice title. So it's an incredible rise in the space of a year.
I call Fiona the surprise packet, and that's why, because it's she came out of nowhere as such to win the women's senior title at the National Cross Country Championships in November. Go back to December 2022, she won the novice cross country title, and that was over 4,000 meters in Connacht. Fast forward 11 months, and she's winning the senior women's cross country title over 9,000 meters in Kilkenny. So there's an incredible rise for Fiona. And we had her on the podcast. We had a great chat with her on the podcast there just after she won gold at the Nationals. And it's the fact that she's getting an injury-free run. She was dogged by injuries the last couple of years, but and I'm touch wood here. She's had an injury-free run this year, so she's able to get consistent training, and we could see that in her. We could see the results of that in her performances. To win a national senior title by 38 seconds, that's no mean feat. That's an incredible. It's an incredible winning margin. And like she was telling us that time that she was always waiting for someone to pass her out. She couldn't believe her. She was in the race. And even coming into the final 500 meters, there was people shouting to her, "You've got this, enjoy it, enjoy this running." But she couldn't enjoy it till she crossed that finishing line. And she was even in a state of shock after that. And Fiona's gold medal there got her onto the Irish women's team that went to the European cross country in Brussels in early December. And she finished 34th there. And I was thinking, okay, that's that's an impressive performance. Her first senior international event of that magnitude. She was third home of the 6 Irish runners, which is no mean feat either. But we had a West Cork Sports Star presentation earlier this week, and Fiona received her Sports Star Award. And she was telling me that she's not happy with 34th. And I think that's the sign of the competitor in her. She wants to get back there and she wants to do better and better. The good news is that she is taking a lot of confidence off winning the senior cross country title, and that's what she needs to do, because that was the kind of flag in the ground moment for Fiona. I'm here now. Look what I can do. The hope now is that she can build on 2023, stay injury free, get another consistent winter training behind her, and hopefully we see better performances again in 2024. She's looking to improve her PBs on the track while also gearing towards the cross country again at the end of next year. So she's a Bandon Athletic Club athlete. She's keeping Bandon on the map. She's keeping Inniskeen on the map. She's went to the same national school as Phil and Joan Healy, 2 other notable athletes, and the same national school in Inniskeen that Orla Cronin, the Camogie All-Star, went to. So that's St. Mary's Central School in Inniskeen. So their former students are certainly finishing top of the class.
Yeah, they're doing something right in Enniskeen. And I was going to mention about the kind of confidence that she'll get from the year she's had, because you could see in her interview with Hugh, she mentioned that she's kind of realized how good she is now, whereas before it was all a little bit like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm actually good at this, and now she has the proof, which hopefully will help her go on to even better things in 2024. We move on to number 5 now. And from athletics to rowing, and Kieran, it's kind of funny that the success of Paul O'Donovan and Fintan McCarthy is number 5 in the list here, because we're talking about their success so often, and it seems like every year they show up in this list. And like you say, maybe on a normal year they'd be number 1, but it just goes to show again the kind of strength of this year in West Cork sport.
in the start, when this list comes out, I'm going to start off. I say the success of Skibbereen Rovers have spoiled us to the extent there's a danger that we can take it for granted when we absolutely shouldn't. And that's exactly it. They have spoiled us, the Skibbereen Rovers, ever since Gary and Paul burst on the scene with that Olympic silver back in 2016. We're now heading into 2024. We're still talking about the success of Skibbereen Rovers at a world level. So this year, Paul O'Donovan and Fintan McCarthy were crowned world champions in the lightweight men's double sculls for the third time. So they're now back-to-back world champions. They're the best in the world at what they do, and they're two local men. They're two Skibbereen Rovers just out the road here from the Star HQ. They're from Affadown Parish, and it's almost because we've become so used to that. Like, that's Paul and Fintan are just a machine. They're a rowing machine where they'll win nearly every race. There was almost shock this year when they didn't win gold at Lucerne in World Cup 3. They finished second by like fractions. I'm talking fractions of a second, and that was their first regatta together this year. But that shows you that the consistent heights that they've hit, is that they are, without dispute, the best lightweight double in the world. They're Olympic champions. We're going into 2024, and the two lads, if they can stay injury-free, will be favourites to win gold at the Paris Olympics as well. And I'd say it again, we just need to enjoy it because nothing lasts forever. And after the 2024 Olympics, lightweight rowing will not be part of the Olympic schedule anymore. So next summer's games will be the last time we'll have lightweight rowing at an Olympics. So just enjoy what the Skibbereen Rovers have done. They brought us so much joy and happiness over the last number of years. How many front pages have they adorned? How many thousands and thousands and thousands of words have been written about the Skibbereen Rovers? And every single one of them justified for what they've done to put Skibbereen rowing on the map and put West Cork on the world map. And we're talking about world champions, the best in the world, yet they only make fifth spot in their local newspapers' top moments of the year. You know, that's incredible. If they finish their Olympic adventure on a high next year, I could safely assume they'd be further up the list, but for now they'll have to settle for fifth.
Absolutely. I guess if they do win gold next year, they might make the top three. Then we'll see. We'll move on now to number 4 and Newcestown. Kieran, they obviously won the Senior A hurling, the Senior A football title this year, and it's been an incredible year for the rural club.
Whatever they have in Newcestown, whatever magical ingredient they have up there, they need to bottle it and sell it because they would make millions. This is an incredible club, and we've spoken about them so much on the podcast before. Everyone knows about Newcestown GA Club, the rural West Cork club, and about the fight and the spirit and that never say die attitude in the club. And they're the team nobody wants to play because you just know that they're never going to stop. Like, they've just a great attitude and spirit. It's the DNA of the club. So for them to do what they did this year, to win county Senior A titles in hurling and football at that level, at senior level, like that's quite astonishing. That's quite unbelievable, especially when they're picking off basically the same panel of players. And during this year's championship, it was week after week hurling, football, football into the knockout stages, throw in a drawn hurling final against Blarney. They'd come back again and they beat Blarney to win the county Senior A hurling final. A few weeks later, then they took on Donny's, their big rivals, in the county Senior A football final. And that was a derby where anything could happen. And Donny's have been so impressive in the lead up to that final. And I remember 15 minutes in, and Newcestown were a couple of points down. I was like, Jesus, these fellas don't look like they have it in their legs. But that Newcestown spirit just shone through again. They took control of that match. David Buckley was a star. He was superb that day. I think it was 9 points he finished with. He scored more than the whole Donny's team, who finished with 8, and it was just one of those matches you're just kind of honoured and privileged to be there to watch David Buckley in action, but also to watch Newcestown complete the double. And they're now up at the Premier Senior level in both football and hurling for 2024. So that's going to be a challenge for them to juggle that. But I'd say no better club to do that either.
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking at the groups there just for their draws or the games next year. In football, they'll be up against Nemo, Ballincollig and Aero, and in hurling they've got SARS, Douglas. Oh, sorry, no, wrong one. They've got the Bars, Blackrock and Father O'Neill. So 2 tough groups there in both codes, but like you say, there's probably no better club to attempt to go at it than Newcestown.
Now, as I said, nobody likes playing against Newcestown, and I think all those teams like that. Let's say that football group for a second. Those three teams they were drawn against were also in the same group together. And this year, now all of a sudden they're facing each other again, and they're facing Newcestown, and they're like, "Oh God, Newcestown," because they know it's going to be tough. And like we've seen this year, there's good footballers and hurlers in Newcestown. But I think going into 2024, it's almost about just just have a good. Just a good year. Don't get involved in any relegation battles and use that as a platform to build on then.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a very quick break and we'll be back to count down our top 3 West Cork sporting moments from 2023.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
And welcome back to the Star Sport podcast, where we're ready to count down our top 3 moments from the year gone by. And Kieran, jumping straight in at number 3, and you've gone for the rise of Inishannon rugby star Jack Crowley.
Yeah, what a year it's been for the Bendon Rugby Club product. Bendon Grammar School, young fellow came through Bendon Grammar. And he's really made his mark. His rise actually, Dylan, has been remarkable over the last couple of years. Go back to 2021, it's when he made his Munster debut. Came on as a sub against Ulster, I think, up in Kingspan Park. Later that year, then he made his kind of first start. To now, 2 years on, he's playing for Ireland at a World Cup in France, and as the backup to Johnny Sexton. So that just shows how far Jack Crowley has come in 2 years. But also this year, like there's been such conversation about who'd be the backup to Sexton. It was between Ross Byrne and there was Joey Carver who was in the conversation at some stage going back, and there was obviously Jack was there as well. But Andy Farrell favoured Jack Crowley. We saw that as the tournament progressed, that it was Jack Crowley who was getting the nod, and whether it was kind of kicking that penalty against South Africa at the start of France. Okay, for a player that caliber, that's almost a gimme in some sense. We've seen players miss it, and he still came on and he still played his part. But he had a World Cup that suggested that Andy Farrell likes and Jack Crowley, with Johnny Sexton after retiring, that Ireland number 10 shirt is up for grabs, and you would think that Jack Crowley is the man leading the race to get that jersey for the Six Nations. A lot can happen between now and the start of the Six Nations at the start of February, but Jack Crowley's name is certainly in the mix. And in the year sports review that's coming out next week, we have a super piece by Tom Savage where I asked Tom to answer the question: is Crowley the heir apparent? And Tom Savage and Three Kings super piece, and it's well worth reading. And he kind of lays out there why he thinks Jack Crowley is the best number 10 in Ireland right now. So it's been a year of huge progress for Jack, from his role in Munster's URC win earlier in the year, to then earning his place in the Irish squad for the World Cup, then becoming the number 2 to back up to Johnny Sexton, then taking his chance when he came on. So he's a young man with a huge future ahead of him. He might be Ireland's future, but he's also Ireland's present as well, and he's Munster's present. So he deserves to get number 3 on the list.
Yeah, it's incredible. I was just looking there. He's done all this at age 23. Johnny Sexton, obviously, look, nobody, I guess if you're Jack Crowley, you're going to get compared to Sexton. You probably don't want to, but you know it's going to happen. And I was just kind of having a look. Sexton he won his first cap for Ireland in 2009 when he was 24. So just going off that kind of very basic comparison, he's further along, let's say. Like he's played in a World Cup, he's won the URC with Munster, and he's still only 23. So it just goes to show kind of the sky is the limit in a sense for him as well.
Exactly, like that's a great point. He's so young, but he's developing all the time. Like in all these, whether it's in the World Cup when he was coming on, he started 1 or 2 games, but he was coming on as a replacement for Sexton. It's all about experience, and it's all building up that bank of knowledge and experience that he has. He's going to make mistakes in games because he's only a young fella. But you can see the potential is there. He just has that X factor. You know, he's a he's a fellow you'd hope that he'd lead Munster for the next decade. Like he has that ability. It's going to be interesting to see if he does get the nod for the Six Nations, and if he does, how he performs, because it's a big sea change for Ireland to go from Johnny Sexton, who was the leader of that team on and off the field for, which is well over 10 years, and all of a sudden now you're looking at someone new coming into such an important position. But Jack Crowley doesn't get phased. He's a very cool, calm demeanour about him. He just met him at Sports Star presentations, and you just know when someone has something about him, and he has that bit of X factor about him too, and you could see it. I don't think his head will be turned by all this chatter about him and the rise that he's had in such a short space of time. So I think, like you said, the sky's the limit for him, and we'll watch on with interest how he develops and matures as a player over the next 12, 18, 24 months.
Yeah, it'll be incredible. And just for listeners who are interested in reading or hearing more about Jack Crowley, we did a podcast earlier in the year, which I thought was very good, in kind of the end of August, about the rise of Jack Crowley. We spoke to Dan Murphy, who's the president of Bandon Rugby Club, where Crowley began his career. We also spoke to Reggie Sonnet, who's a former Toulouse player, and he's a coach who is working with Bandon RFC and Bandon Grammar, and worked with Crowley as a young man. So that's well worth going back to listen to for anybody who's interested in hearing more about the rise of Jack Crowley. That's why he's number 3. We'll move on to number 2, and it's Castlehaven, who have had an incredible couple of months, Kieran, winning the Cork Premier Senior football title, winning the Munster Premier Senior football title, and now into an All-Ireland semi-final in early January. Just brilliant stuff from a remarkable team.
Yeah, and I think the caveat with this, they're at number 2, but they're not finished yet. Like you said, they're at an All-Ireland semi-final to take it on St. Bridget's in Thurles on January 7th. So possibly the best is yet to come for this Castlehaven team. But James McCarthy's side so far, like they've had an absolutely brilliant season to win the county title, to win the county senior football title for the first time in 10 years. That's obviously worth noting. Like it's a huge achievement, but it's the way they did it, Dylan, that kind of that really impressed people, because this was a hard-won county title. To beat Clonakilty in the group stage finals 2 years ago, to beat a good Ballincollig team, to beat the Bars, their nemesis over the last couple of years in the county semi-final, was a big scalp for Castlehaven to take. And then to beat Nemo Rangers, the reigning champions, in the final. Haven took out all the big guns along the way. And I think this was a very important county for Castlehaven to win, because they have been part of the big three over the last couple of years. There was themselves, Haven and the Bars. But if you were ranking those big three before the season, Haven were always third, because the Bars are winning the county, or was Nemo, and it was either back in the 2020 county final played in 21. There was Nemo beat Castlehaven. Then the Bars took Haven out in the 2021 and 22 semi-finals. So Haven were knocking at the door, but this was the year that the door opened, and absolutely brilliant. First time in a decade that they won the county title. And for the likes of Brian Hurley, Michael Hurley, Dave Cahalan, Mark Collins, they're all there back in 2013 as well. So they're all central characters on this Haven team that opened the door to the Munster series. They were an arm wrestle against Cratloe in a Munster quarter-final that was moved from Castlehaven up to Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Then they travelled to Fahrenfield and Dungarvan and beat Rathcormac, the Waterford champions. And then we had that incredible Munster final against Dingle in the Gaelic grounds in early December, played in a storm. Like, it was incredible up there that day, the wind and the rain that lashed the players on the field. And it's a credit to both teams that they served up such an entertaining game. But that's a game where Castlehaven looked dead and buried it a couple of times. 3 points down in the second half of normal time. They got it back to force extra time. 3 points down at half time and extra time. They looked dead and buried again. But the spirit in this group is just incredible. They got it back to force penalties. And they earned penalties. They beat Dingle in sudden death after stumping us all with putting Damon Cahalan in goal. So just an incredible game to watch and to be there for. So they definitely deserve their number 2 spot. They put West Cork football back on the map again. A great year for West Cork football. But like I said, the best could be yet to come, because we're heading into the All-Ireland series in the new year.
Yeah, Kieran, they kind of remind me a little bit of Real Madrid in the Champions League a couple of years ago. You just can't seem to kill them. Every time a team thinks they've pulled one over on the Haven, they manage to bring it back with some clutch points in the last minute, or by coming back from a few points down. And even thinking back to the opening game of the county championship against Carberry, they drew, I think it was 11 points apiece. I don't think many people after that game would have been pointing at Castlehaven and saying county champions, let alone Munster champions, and now into the All Ireland series as well. So that kind of goes to show the incredible work that's been done, I guess not just this year, but in the last few years as well, to get them to this place as well.
One man who did think after that draw against Carbery Rangers in Clonakilty that they would win the county was their manager, James McCarthy. He was telling me after, only a couple of weeks ago, after that game, he got the lads, Castlehaven lads, into a huddle on the pitch, and he said to them, I think we're going to win the county this year, because he saw the heart and spirit and determination of the group, because they were out a couple of players. Bright Hurley was missing that day. Did black cards, I think did have a red card, did injuries. Conor Cahalane was off, Jack Cahalane was off. So they were out 5, you could say, regulars by the end of that game, yet they held out to get a draw against Carbery Rangers. And James McCarthy just felt, he goes, just what he saw from the group that day kind of said to him, Jesus, we could do something here. It's one thing saying it, but it's another thing doing it, you know. And like I said earlier, to win the county the way they did was incredible. And it's just a team, like, Dingle will be having nightmares. Like, it's like the boogie. Like, Jesus, like, kind of, Haven would not die that day, like whatever they did, you know. And a 3-point lead in those conditions was a huge lead, but Haven's head never dropped. And that's just a remarkable about this group. It's a spirit. It's a spirit. We talked about Newstown earlier, about the DNA in the club and the spirit and the resilience and the character. And Haven showed that in spades that day up in the Gaelic grounds. And I think I said in the podcast after, that's what kind of struck me after. I was like, Jesus Christ, those fellas just won't go away. Like, and I think that's a remarkable trait to have in a team. So going into the All Ireland series, St. Bridget's will know kind of that they're in for a battle, that they really are in for a battle. So we'll have to see now what the new year brings. It could be a nice busy start to January for the sports section.
Yeah, that'd be great. And just before we move on to our number one as well, with Haven, you mentioned there the spirit, but it's the quality as well that they have in spades, because it was Mark Collins, the captain, was speaking to us on a podcast recently, and when Michael Hurley went down in the final, his thought was next man up, and next man came up and performed well. And we saw Cahalane had the game of his life in the final then as well, when they really needed him to. So they have the quality there, kind of outside of kind of the first couple of big names as well.
That's it about James McCarthy and his management team have done over the last couple of years. They've given youth its chance. So they're building a really strong squad there. So the likes of Sean Brown, these young fellas are coming in. They're getting starting places. We saw young Micheál Maguire come off the bench in the Munster final. So they're not afraid to give youth its fling and to give young fellas a chance. And there's a really kind of strong core of young players coming up there. Look at the likes of Robbie Minahan coming on. There's these young players, like Jack Cahalane, still only 21, I think. So they have this core of young players that complement the older group. The lads I mentioned earlier, the Brian Hurley, Michael Hurley, Mark Collins, Damien Cahalane. You look at the likes of, like, Conor Cahalane is very experienced at this stage as well. Colin Maguire, one of the heroes from the Munster final with 4 points. When you have the likes of him stepping up to become a hero on the day, like, I think that's huge for the group, because maybe over the years there was an overdependence on Brian Hurley, and you can see why. Like, he's an incredible footballer. He's been Cork's top forward for the last 10 years or so. But then you look at the Munster quarter final against Crowley up in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and it was Robbie Minahan who came on to get the goal. So they have heroes emerging in different games, and that's just good for Castlehaven. So there's a strength and depth there to suggest that even after this season, that they aren't a team that's going to go away.
Yeah, absolutely. So good luck to them as well in their All Ireland semi-final against St. Bridget's. That's on the weekend of the 6th to the 7th of January, isn't it?
That's on Sunday, the 7th of January. It's in Simple Stadium in Thurles.
Yeah, so we'll be back on the podcast speaking about that game, I'm sure. Okay, Kieran, moving on to our number one pick for the year, and I guess anyone who's been around Skibbereen in the past 7 days maybe would have been able to guess what our number one pick would be, but it's the O'Donovan Ross's ladies footballers who won an All-Ireland title last Sunday.
What an absolutely brilliant win, and the celebrations that followed after were incredible. This is just a really, really remarkable story, the rise of this O'Donovan Rossa football team. Rewind back to the County Junior A final in 2022, they lost to Neva Bawn. They were heartbroken afterwards. So to bounce back the way they did in 2023, not alone did they win the county title, not alone did they win the Munster title, but last Sunday they went up to Parnell Park and they won the All-Ireland title as well. They beat Clare Morris 2-7 to 11 points. Young Ava O'Donovan to start the show. She scored 2-5 that day, with Ava actually here work experience a couple of months back as well. So can we take some credit for Dylan, even just like 0.02%, because we brought Ava in here, we showed her what the sports department is about, and maybe that set seeds in her mind, I want to get in front of the Star. I want to get in front of that Star Sports section. And you know what? She's realised that ambition. People who see the Southern Star Sports section this Thursday will see the Skib hero of the moment there. But just an incredible win for O'Donovan Rossa. And what's really cool about this, Dylan, is it's on the 30th anniversary of the men's team winning the All-Ireland Senior Club back in 1993. So O'Donovan Rossa can now lay claim to having 2 All-Ireland titles in the one club in men's and women's. That's quite a unique achievement. But the women's rightly are taking centre stage, and they rightly deserve to take top spot in our moments of the year as well.
Yeah, it's incredible. You mentioned Ava there, obviously getting the headlines, kicking the 2-5 out of Ross's 2-7 in the final. But the whole team, it's not just about now as well. When you take into consideration, it's a very young team. So who knows kind of where this team could go going forward as well.
It is. You're looking at the likes of Ava. She's a 4th-year student up in Skibbereen Community School. Ellie Tobin, really good defender, really highly rated. She's a 4th-year student also up in the same school. And both Ava and Ellie have been called into the Cork Minor panel for next year. But even looking at Laura Mahoney there in the engine in midfield, she's still quite a young footballer, and she's played with Cork for the last couple of years. So there's a lot of young players. Tara Regan, the sub goalkeeper, came on the final. She's in school up in Skibbereen. Aoife O'Driscoll, who came on as well, she's still a school student. So you have a lot of young players coming on board, and then you mix that with the experienced players like Michelle Donnell in defence, Christine Fitzgerald in goal, the likes of Kate O'Donovan, who's a teacher. She's from Lepsey. She's a teacher in the secondary school in Skibbereen. So they've a lovely mix there. They have a lovely mix of players, but they have a lot of youth as well. And what this will do for those young players to be part of this incredible season, that will help their development no end, because not only did they win the county, but then they go into Munster and they travel around to the different venues and play the Munster final up in Mallow against Clonmacnoise and Myvana Kerry and win that. That's great for those players' development. But then that All-Ireland quarter-final, to go across to Glasgow to play a quarter-final, and all the trappings that had with it, fly out on the Friday, stay overnight, play a quarter-final at 11:30 on the Saturday morning, get the flight back home again. Then straight after that, they went to an All-Ireland home semi-final in Skibbereen, which brought a bit of pressure with it as well. A huge crowd came out to watch the local team, then go up to an All-Ireland final. That's a lot of big games in a short space of time for those young players, and even for those experienced players, huge learning curves. And I think what's impressive is they pass the test each time. And take it back to the final against Clare Morris last Sunday. They were leading for most of that game. 7 minutes to go, Clare Morris went the point up. Skib needed to fight back. They needed an answer to what Clare Morris, because they were playing well at the time, the Mayo team. And it was just a lovely sweeping move up the field. Started from Tara O'Regan in goal. Laura Mahoney was on the ball. I think Emma Hurley was on the ball. Got it into Kate O'Donovan, who popped the pass inside to Ava O'Donovan, who checked back and left-footed, bang, goal. What a response. what a brilliant response from a team when they were kind of backed into the corner. They came up with a big goal, a big moment in a big game, and it just speaks heart for the character of this side. So they brought a lot of joy to Skibbereen. I've seen here for the last couple of weeks the red and white flags all around the town. The town have taken this team to their hearts, and you can see that connection because a lot of these players, they're living and working here in Skib. Jessica Beechner, she works at Access Credit Union. She lives in Skib. Like I mentioned, Christine Fitzgerald, the goalkeeper, she teaches in St. Joseph's National School. Michelle Donnellan, well, I mentioned earlier as well, she works in Cost Cutters, Hegarty's Cost Cutters. You have all these local links, as in because they're here in Skib, they're living, working, their family and friends are here, and that's why the homecoming was so special, and that's why this All-Ireland win has resonated so much, and it's brought people's memories back to 1993 when that great team led by Small Mick won the All-Ireland as well. So huge celebrations for the Rossa, and definitely shortened the winter, and I think they'll have a good Christmas in Skibbereen.
Yeah, absolutely. The videos of the homecoming were brilliant, and you mentioned it's the 30th anniversary of the men's senior All-Ireland winners. It won't be until 2053 that the ladies footballers will kind of sit back and realize the gravity of their achievements, I guess. So we'll be back on the podcast in 2053 to look back on a brilliant year for O'Donovan Rossa once again. So that's the end of our list, Kieran. Do you have any honourable mentions before we finish up? I know we spoke about Barry Rowe, but there's been plenty of other brilliant West Cork sports people and sports teams throughout the year. Is there anyone else you want to give a quick mention to?
Yeah, obviously the Barry Rowe footballers, very unlucky not to get in. No doubt my inbox will be full now, thanks to you getting out my email address so people can complain about that one. You can look at the likes of Nicola Tuthill, the hammer thrower from Kilbrittain, had a superb year, won the senior women's hammer title back in the summer, finished fourth at European under-23s, set numerous PBs. She had an incredible year. I'm thinking top of my head now, Libby Coventry, a back-to-back all-star from St. Columb's, a rock in that full back line for the Cork team that won the All-Ireland Camogie title and hammered Waterford in the final. Libby definitely in with a shout to get into the top 10. Dunmanway Town, the Beamish Cup specialists, won the cup for the third time in 4 years. They beat Bunratty up in Turner's Cross. And it was 2-1 earlier in the year as well. The likes of Drina Rangers winning the Premier Division title. Like, there's so many there, like, and that's why we just talk about the sport in West Cork and this kind of golden era, and you can definitely see it. So it's a tough challenge to have it down to just 10. I think it's a good top 10. So I'm hoping the people who want to send in the complaint, or they're about to press that send button, they're like, you know what, we'll give this guy a break inside here. No, I think it's a super year, and I think what's exciting is right into an Olympic year in 2024, and that's always going to be busy. We have so much West Cork interest in that as well, and the GA scene can be built on this year. There's so much going on, so it's been an incredible 2023, and we just know next year will be just as exciting.
Yeah, looking forward to 2024. And speaking of looking forward, Kieran, just very quickly, the Southern Star is in shops tomorrow, Thursday, as always. What can readers look forward to in this week's Southern Star? We have 6 pages on O'Donovan Rossa's All-Ireland victory.
If there's a Star left in Skibbereen by Friday morning, something is wrong somewhere. I'm hoping the Star will be sold out because, like you said, 6 pages of the best coverage of O'Donovan Rossa's All-Ireland win. We've all the bases covered from reaction from the players like Lisa Hart, like Kate O'Donovan, from like the manager James O'Donovan. I write a piece about the connection between the 2023 ladies team and the 93 men's team, the links there, but also the connection between this team and the town. When the bus came in on Sunday night, they stopped off on North Street, and Noel and Nora O'Driscoll were waiting there to lift the cup. Their granddaughter Aoife was on the Skib team, and Noel and Nora's son Joe, who's Aoife's dad, was actually on the Skib team that won the All-Ireland back in 93. So just that lovely kind of full circle moment for them. So loads of O'Donovan Rossa coverage. Also interview with Cathal Maguire, Haven hero from the Munster final, where he tells us he hopes this season never ends, and it's easy to see why he says that. Tom Lyons counts down his top 10 West Cork GA moments of the year, which is quite interesting when you compare to what we've just talked about now. So I won't say too much more. Some of what we have doesn't. Thomas has his top 10 in different places, so that's well worth checking out. Match report from Clonakilty Soccer Club beat Dunamay Town in the West Cork League Premier Division to stretch their lead to 11 points. We have a big report on that. We've all the Christmas soccer fixtures that are coming up. The road bowling is set for a busy period. We have an interview with the Barry Road captain, David O'Sullivan, telling us why the sky's the limit for the Barry Road footballers. We explain why the Bandon footballers are relegated from Junior A in Carbery without kicking a ball and why they were relegated. St Mary's GA Club are the first Carbery club in West Cork to win an Irish Joe McDonagh award. And there's so much more in there. So it's just before Christmas, and I think our listeners should treat themselves to the Star this Thursday, because much like Santa Claus on Christmas Eve, we deliver and you won't be disappointed.
Absolutely. And if you are further afield or you can't make it to the shops, you can treat yourself to the Southern Star e-paper. Get it on your laptop, tablet or phone. Just head to subscribe.southernstar.ie, enter your details and you'll get an exact replica of the newspaper for less than €2 per week, alongside full access to our website as well. As always, thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast. Again, this is our last episode of the year, so I guess from myself and Kieran, a happy Christmas to all our listeners and a happy new year as well. We'll be back again in the new year to keep you up to date on all things West Cork sport. But in the meantime, the paper will still be out, so you won't miss Kieran too much if you pick up the Star tomorrow. You can pick it up on the 28th as well for a brilliant edition where we'll be reviewing we have the news review and the sports review of 2023 as well. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get yours. And thank you again this year to our sponsors at Access Credit Union. We'll be back again in January. Thanks for listening.